All right, welcome back to another Wright Stew podcast. I am Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright, and Paulie, we made it to Friday. Made it to Friday. Again, I think the best day of the week. Best day of the week. You still have anticipation for the weekend. You still have the day you need to get through, and you obviously got things you got to get done on Friday as a adult, which is debatable if I am one at times. But yeah, so Friday, we made it.
Okay, and I've asked you this a couple of days this week already. Is there a Friday song that you have that you love?
I should be asking you these questions because you are the encyclopedia of music in 80s and 90s baseball stats. I am more of a vibe. I don't like the label. No, I just can't recall any of them, dude. I'm sure there are. What comes to mind for you, Paulie?
Well, obviously Rebecca Black, Friday. So my kids and I had a pretty good Friday playlist, but the one that really stands out, it's not a Friday song, but it's David Allan Coe. You never even call me by my name. You never even
Well, I
call
know the
me
words.
by
I
my
know the words to
name.
that one. But
Great, yeah,
you
great.
had some other songs that were not as publicly friendly, I recall.
Yeah, well, a couple, yeah, well, yeah, but the David Allan Coe song. So growing up in Raleigh, North Carolina, or Garner, North Carolina, but the Raleigh area, G105 was like the pop kind of music channel, and on Friday mornings they had their morning show, and they had the Friday free for all. And I remember my freshman year in high school, one of my best friends, his older sister was a senior, and she would pick me up and drive me to school. And she loved the show, so we listened to the show. But every Friday was the Friday morning free for all, and they would have a studio audience,
Oh
and they
yeah,
would
I recall that. Yeah,
and they
yeah.
would play this song every Friday, and everybody would in the studio audience would sing along and have a good time. And I wasn't really at that time. I wasn't really a country music guy, and that was kind of like a little gateway drug into country music for me. So that was just kind of a one-off song. But then yeah, you start playing baseball, and it's country music's playing all the time on the speakers and all that sort of stuff.
So
So
when did you transition to listening to country music?
about that ninth grade or so, maybe 10th.
Yeah,
And but I still kept listening to everything else too. Pretty wide variety of music.
that
But
was 90s country. It was catchy. It became a lot cooler than maybe it had been previously. But
yeah.
yeah,
And
that's
then
pretty.
I was always on the younger side of Legion ball and high school ball, and I didn't get my driver's license until October of my junior year. So I was dependent on a lot of people driving me places, like friends and teammates, and uh, for some things, certainly parents. But Billy Meyer was one of my really good friends. Still love him to death, and he would drive us around, me and my other buddy, and he had a big Ford Bronco or Blazer, one of those big white, just massive truck. But
Almost like the OJ vehicle.
yes, it's similar. Yeah. And he listened to country music, and so I listened to it with him as well. And it was all
And
good.
now, well, I will confirm that we rode back from one of our baseball trips, and you've got a full collection and can sing along with a ton of 90s country. And
Yeah.
so
It's just
you're
it's one of my Pandora channels, the old 90s country. Love it. So but a special day in the Stewart household today. Today is my mother's birthday. So February 28th. I'm not sure she was almost a leap year baby. She may have been. Not this is clearly not a leap year, but so my mom, happy birthday to my mom. She now goes by Mina. She was that's her grandparent name, and it's kind of odd, I guess. Is this how it worked in your family? The oldest grandchild got to dictate and pick the names of the grandparents?
very much was, very much was. I'll let you tell how she got that exactly. Then I've got one just to confirm that's the way it
Yeah,
works in
honestly,
ours.
I'm not. So my oldest daughter, she's the oldest of my side of the family's grandchildren, and she starts called my parents Mina and Poppy, and so Poppy made sense because I called my dad Pops, and so that one I don't know how the Mina came about, but it's very unique, I think, from a grandparent's name, and So that's what she goes by today, and I call her that now, and it's just something that's evolved over the
Well,
past.
it's funny. I thought it was some maybe
No, well,
Greek or some
her
other
name is
language. Yeah.
no, her name is Sharon.
Well, I knew that wasn't
Yeah, I've
actually her
called her.
name, but yeah.
I call her mom. You know, I like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
say
yeah,
mom.
yeah. I thought Mina was like Greek or some,
No, we like that
Portuguese or
culture
something.
to come
Yeah.
up with something very clever or anything like that. But no, what you got a grandparent story?
Well, I would just say I can confirm that's the way we worked. My wife's dad wanted to be very classic and was going to be just grandpa.
Yeah,
And my oldest daughter, for whatever reason, said grandca.
with a K.
So you got a K instead of the P. And now we've got, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, maybe, depending on how you count, like nine grandchildren after my oldest daughter, and my father-in-law's name to them as grandca, all of them.
That's so funny.
Right. So and there is no French or whatever you would put into that, but
It's
yeah,
just
that
bad
is,
pronunciation.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
carry through. Hey, happy birthday, Mina. Happy birthday.
yeah.
Hey, the next one's always the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, as most sports mothers was always dutiful and carried me to all the games and had snacks waiting for us and food and so
I got a
just yeah.
question. I got a question. We'll honor Mina for sure. Was she a parent that would get on the umpires? Number one. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. So I'm gonna just let you kind of,
Yeah.
fill in. So was she a parent that would get on umpires? Was she a parent that would like defend you, or was she a parent that would, hey, Paul, you had 6 innings of good,
No, yeah.
was she into what was kind of her, insight
Quiet.
into
She was a
you?
quiet fan. I think a very stressed fan, as I kind of discussed. Like being a pitcher is fun. Being a pitcher's mother is not as fun. Um, I think I made it a little easier. I was pretty good. I think I made it a little easier on her, and yeah, she had fun watching. But she was more of a pacer down the sideline a little
I
bit.
can appreciate that. I
Yeah,
can appreciate that.
she's just kind of back and forth. Um, she's always had some heart issues. So I think some of that was probably not great for her. But never. I don't honestly. I don't ever remember her like remotely close to being upset with an umpire or a coach or not at the field at least. I'm sure she said some things like that. Coach, he should do something different, but never anything like that. Always really supportive. I don't remember having a conversation with her after a game ever where she was like, "You should throw your curveball more." Nothing like that at all. And
Or like, hey, quit being a wuss, and
yeah,
challenge this guy.
no, always, yeah, but always looking out for the more emotional Paul, making sure I was taken care of from that perspective, but never, yeah, I can't remember her ever criticizing anything on the field. Just always looking out for, hey, what's best for you? What are you trying to do? And I think she just deferred some of that sports stuff to either my dad or myself or little brother, right when he was playing. But yeah, it's always super supportive and always one to. And still does at her grandkids game, always out talking to other parents, other grandparents, and just making friends and building connections that way. So and then and now more recently always has kind of a quilting or a hobby that she brings with her to the games. You've probably seen her at some of our travel games where she's got a
Oh
little
yeah.
basket of and just always just kind of doing work while she's watching the game and having a good time. And she's become pretty adept with all the technology, all the game changers and videos and streams and getting that online as well, doing a good job with that. So it does mean a lot, I know, to a lot of grand folks out there who get those streams. So we'll be diligent with that and make sure if you're a travel coach or a player out there, you're getting your streams in for your grandparents.
Always good to have a good stream.
Yeah, absolutely. So happy birthday, Mina. Hope it's a great one. And she's actually down in South Carolina right now watching our second one play some softball. So right where she wants to be on her birthday, a college softball field. So works out really well. Well, Brian, some sad news yesterday, more in the kind of pop culture, movie acting world. Gene Hackman passed away with his wife and dog apparently. There's been some reports of some foul play. I we kind of we don't really want to speculate on stuff. It's not
I
really
agree. I
not our
agree.
business to, but
I would say at least generally a lot of 95-year-olds die, but generally not a dog and a wife that's 63. She wasn't quite his age.
yeah,
But hey, let's jump to a different thing and a different side of it. So obviously, I think of a handful of movies when I think of Gene Hackman, and I also, you know, there was definitely some classics. Do you have like your top two, three movies? And I've really only got two or three that I can think of. He was a little bit more popular, maybe kind of made his presence known more in the 70s and early 80s. And I was born in 80s. So
yeah.
uh, he definitely had his roles after that. But are there any movies that really like, hey, this is what I think
Yeah.
of Gene Hackman when I think of these movies?
Yeah, well, I know the one everybody's talking about is the French Connection, and a couple. The ones for me are one, uh, Lex Luthor and Superman.
I thought you were going to put that lower. It's number one for me, actually.
So that's so I think of two, that, and then clearly like Hoosiers, like he as the
And that would be
character.
number one or two. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
those are the
Hey,
two
I
that
heard
come up to me.
yesterday, Paulie, can you confirm this with your big brain?
Oof.
Can you confirm that Hoosiers was based on a true story, roughly?
Based on a true story is a pretty loose and wild thing to say with a lot of movies. There's a lot of liberties going on. I would assume it's based on some sort of true story.
Like it's
Uh,
happened, some
well,
version of
so this
that
is
happened. We
so
hire a guy who's a drunk and he
yeah.
becomes a coach and
Well,
try to
like
give him a chance.
we talked about Rudy, right? Rudy was based on a true story, and we found there's a
But
lot
not
of
really. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's I mean pretty loosely based, but so who's Indiana, the state of Indiana, for their high school basketball tournament? That is how it used to be. There was no classifications. Everybody was thrown in one big lump thing, and then you fought it out to get to Indianapolis or wherever the final game was being held that year. And so you could have, a big school with an enrollment of 3,500 kids, or an enrollment of 50 kids. You're all in the same tournament. And I remember, I think the classification of that broke down in the late 90s, or they actually created classifications for the tournaments in the late 90s because they wanted to make it fair and equitable. So, smaller school could play smaller school.
Is
But I
that
remember,
just in Indiana? Because it was obviously different in North Carolina.
yeah, no, that was just well, I think they did it in other states, but Indiana held on to that tradition the longest.
Gotcha.
And I remember, like, kind of across the country, it made a little bit of news because it's like, oh, they're changing up the tournament the way they're doing it. But I had a roommate in baseball for a couple of years, a guy named Phil Kendall. He's actually from Jasper, Indiana,
Mhm.
which and he played in high school with Scott Rowland.
Oh, yes,
Scott
yeah.
Rowland was a couple of years ahead of us, and I think Rowland may have been a senior his freshman or sophomore year, so he played with them, and um, kind of felt like he had to live up to those expectations a little bit because
That's
he
some
had
pretty
Rowland,
challenging.
like literally a Hall of Famer was in,
Yeah.
in front of him. So, but Phil, a good dude, was a catcher, but they converted him to a pitcher, and he pitched in pro ball. Anywho, when that was all going on, he's a big Indiana guy, and he said, kind of nationally, everybody was really excited about the divisions. He said, but in the state, people love the tournament. Like it was so because it was Hoosiers. Like, like, hey, our little school can go beat this, and whether they won like the whole tournament or just went to the second or third round, like it meant more to the little schools to do that. It's been 25 years or so since that's happened, but so now it's probably erased from everybody's memory. But I remember him at the time being, just out of high school, was like, no, like, dude, we want the big and small schools together. That's like kind of the fun of it. That's makes it super unique, and it presents a lot of really cool challenges, and clearly great stories, right? I mean, we saw
It
Hoosiers.
does. You don't see it almost felt segregated, right? Because you had it was essentially the all white school versus the all black school. It felt like, or at least some, the other team that they eventually beat had some really good athletes. And, it kind of hit on the stereotypes. Like if you were being critical of the movie, I wasn't. To be honest with you, when I first saw it, I wasn't. It was one of those movies. I wasn't a huge fan. Right? You kind of got the really good player who doesn't really want to play. He's kind of
Jimmy
being.
Chitwood, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you're the
Picket
best.
fence.
Get out there. Don't make him suck up to you. Get out there and be a part of the team. And so I
Yeah.
didn't really like that dynamic. You got the drunk guy who can't get his life together, and Gene Hackman's character keeps trying to give him chances to figure it out and give him chances. And it's like, dude. And then you got the team that clearly is better getting beat by clearly the inferior team. I think the more I've watched it and the more I'm matured, I can appreciate it. And actually, I would still consider it, in my top 2 or 3 for Gene. But it's it's kind of weird how it has changed. Because originally, when I first saw it, when I think like that's always been considered. If you're remotely a basketball person or were a basketball person growing up, yeah, as a white person, you like that movie because it's like, oh, you do things right, you figure out ways to win, and it's like, well, in the movies, but it's definitely grown on me over the years, and there are good principles around it. I don't want to pretend like there's not, but
Yeah.
it's just like I don't know. It
It
didn't
wasn't.
seem real.
It wasn't. It wasn't one of my. I was a baseball, and football growing up. I wasn't a basketball kid growing up, so this movie didn't really. I saw it. I didn't see it at the theater. I saw it probably
Oh
five
no, no, no!
years
I saw
after.
it much later. I may have been like 20 years old before
Yeah,
I. I
it
mean, I
didn't
was
hit my
much later.
radar. Yeah, it didn't hit my radar until much later because I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't a basketball guy, so it didn't really. Um, but some of the some pretty good scenes in there. Though he goes to the gym and how tall is get the tape measure out. 10
I
feet.
did appreciate
Yeah.
that, right? Because the stage, the rules of the game don't change no matter what the arena
Yeah.
around it is.
And then then they had the slow clap moment, and you used to see. I don't know if you still see that clip anymore, but yeah, on jumbotrons in stadiums,
Oh, that's a good point.
there was always a
Yeah.
montage, and they're doing the slow clap as they head out to the championship game or whatever it was. So, yeah, I don't know the movie is like as intimately as like I would like Major League or Field of Dreams or something like that. But I guess it's got to be up there in the when you're talking like basketball movies, like best of all time.
Yeah, I would need a computer, and I'm sure there's some. I think
Well,
there's
like
a
all right,
gambling one.
off the top of my head, there's Love and Basketball,
That's the one.
White Men Can't Jump,
That would be number 2 or 1.
Basketball Diaries,
I
uh,
don't remember that one.
Above the Rim.
I remember that one.
Yeah, there's Semi Pro with Will Ferrell.
Actually, I saw a meme with him and Donich, who came from
Yeah,
Dallas, and they'd had like where they were passing in, passing out, passing in, pass it out, passing in, pass it out. And dude, it looked like LeBron and Donnie were
Luka.
kind of doing it back and forth, and it looked the exact same, and it's like it was hilarious. But yeah, so I feel like over time that has a chance to kind of become a classic too. It's funny how some of these movies in the moment, and I don't know how Hoosiers is probably really well received in the moment, but it's funny how certain movies over time become more of a cult classic, and they may not have originally felt that way when they came out. I think about like almost like Happy Gilmore, like that kind of
Oh,
became.
that's always been great. That one's always been
But I
great.
don't know how well it was received in theaters or Dumb and
Oh,
Dumber.
I don't think it was ever meant to be well received. I think it was just fun and silly, and you're not going to win any, um, like awards or
I think they should.
Here's a couple other. He got game and Coach Carter. A couple others. I just did a quick little search, but there's a couple other ones that are. Coach Carter was pretty good. Not a bad. Kind of is what you thought it would be, but yeah, man. So Gene Hackman. Yeah, rest in peace, and his wife and dog. So sad news. Sad news there. Hey,
That probably shouldn't be
hey,
funny if it's how you said it. Yeah, and
speaking
yeah.
of dogs, I had to go pick up my dog from the vet. He did his like grooming and um, whatever you do, a little
Get his
checkup.
anal canal cleaned and get his teeth cleaned.
I don't know. They do whatever. But I'm sitting there and I'm waiting to pick up the dog, and the way the counters, it's kind of rounded. So I see this other family across, and they're talking, and the lady is talking to him. She's like, "Oh, well, this whatever it was out of network or whatever. I guess they had dog insurance." And they go, "Well, for Lucky today's fee." So the dog's name was Lucky. For Lucky today's fee, 3108. Not $31.08, 3,100.
Oh my God.
And the guy had his card out. He just tapped the card, beep. Okay, thank you. And then they kind of walk around and so and I was kind of I heard $3,108. I'm like, oh my, I'm gonna remember that number on my deathbed now. I just tapped it like it was nothing. I'm like, oh, okay, well,
Good for him to be able to do
yeah,
that.
yeah. And then I saw him walk around, and the way they were walking around, so it was like a little rehab place at the vet place, and they go to look in the window, like they're looking at their new baby in like the hospital through the window, like old school. And I kind of peek. I'm like, I want to see this dog. Like, who's Lucky? Lucky's in there, like laying flat belly on the floor, like legs sprawled. And there's a woman in there just like kind of massaging it's like an old, like golden retriever. And she's back there just like working the dog's hips. And I'm like, $3,108 for whatever just got done for Lucky. And
And Lucky's not going to make it more than a couple more years anyway. I mean, there's a lifespan on. We're not great. If people are super dog people, and I know people like this that will spend anything on their animals to keep them
yeah,
alive. I'm not. You can replace Lucky, Lucky 2, probably for $500. Maybe if you want to get into some really quality stuff, $1,500. You
or
know.
for free.
Yeah. Well,
There's
yeah. There's a
places you
dog
can
pound. It's $75, and you pay for their shots or whatever.
yeah.
I mean,
And you've told
I
me
don't
we've
know.
talked about this. Your brother has some pretty big issues with his
Yeah,
dogs, right?
yeah. And I don't even know if he wants it out there, but whenever he's got a dog who has diabetes, right? He has to give his dog shot to keep it kicking, and
Oh,
that would feel like you miss you got to make it. It had to. They think maybe it developed, so now they have their special food. They make it home, and it's a real commitment to keeping. I respect the discipline
mm,
because, and you feel bad. I don't know what the answer is. I guess back in the day, people would just take it out and shoot it. Maybe now that don't feel as socially acceptable because I don't know what I would do. Right, if I was having to pay to maintain an animal that's gimped up here, but it's not. I don't know. There's a balance between quality of life, how much money you're costing me, and it's hard and compassion. I have a little bit, and but probably not as much as some people. And so it's a conflict. And so my threshold may be differently than other people when it comes to keeping the dog alive. I'm not one of these people. My wife would hate to hear this, but I'm not one of these people where the dog is a member of the family. You know, the dog is an animal in the family, right? It's not a member of the
yeah.
family. And so there's I feel like me and you have talked enough. You're similar. Hey, you want to do the
Yeah,
right thing. You
my
feed it, you walk it, but when it starts costing you a mortgage payment to keep it alive, maybe
couple
time
more
to
payments. Lucky's doing it, man.
yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, I've shared my thoughts and feelings. I'm not a dog guy, really.
But you have one champ. He loves you. He loves me. I feel
No,
like he may get into
he
pod.
likes you. He likes you more than he likes me, I think.
Yeah, but
But
it's.
he does hang out with me pretty much every day, just on on the couch over here if we're around.
I think
He's
there's a
always
bond there. There's a bond.
yeah. But yeah, I'm the same way. He's just here.
That's incredible. 3108. Yeah, I'll remember that number too. That's a big number.
Yeah,
Good for them for being okay with it. I would have to call my bank because they'd be like, dude, somebody has stolen your identity and trying to pay for their dog.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're buying a lot of dog treats over here. They're doing something. Yeah. So Brian, this is also one of those kind of times of year where it's regular season, mid late NBA, spring training, football's kind of completely done. It's all workout kind of stuff. Uh, college baseball, I know for us is alive and kicking pretty well, and college softball clearly. Is there anything that you look forward to this time of year, or is it just? I
Well,
guess
I've
I guess
heard.
hold on, we are 1 day away from March 1st, which clearly brings some madness. So that's on the horizon. But is
I
there something
think.
that you look forward to right now?
Well, I know a lot of like real sports people that talk about sports and make their living doing that. Talk about these 2 weeks, and then I think there's another week here or there.
Well, there's another week in like August, like July and August, when it's
And
just
yeah,
like regular. It's like regular season baseball, and people are jonesing for like football camps to get
yeah, and
started.
I think maybe during the All-Star break, there's a day. There's like literally no sports, so there has been in the past.
I think
Literally
that's when
no
they
sports.
started doing the ESPYS, though. I think the ESPN did a good job of kind of
Yeah, I'm not
coordinating.
into award shows. They don't do anything for me.
Well, I mean, it's something, yeah.
But the flip side is, I would say for me, let me just talk about me. Definitely college baseball, definitely, and
Yeah,
our kids are still at the age where they're playing and stuff. So this is an exciting time, whether it be my oldest daughter with high school lacrosse or my youngest son, doing in baseball right now. Then I've got a middle daughter. It is, you've heard of wedding season. It's dance season as well. So we have dance season right now, and so there's good times to be had there all across the country, all across, not local, all across the country. And so we have good times with that. And so a lot of personal stuff. I enjoy, when you get to the fall, outside of the weather that's coming up, you enjoy like playoff baseball and football starting. That's probably the best
yeah.
sports time. But there's
October.
there's
Yeah.
definitely good things I like now. The Wolfpack in every sport is sucking. So March Madness is not going to be very fun if you're a Wolfpack fan. And they're probably not even going to make the
No,
ACC tournament.
they shouldn't even make the ACC tournament based on.
Well, I mean, based on where they are, only the top 15 make it, so they're probably not. And then
They're on the
baseball
bubble.
right now,
Well,
we're
yeah,
we're
it's tough
three
to
and
be on the bubble for your own conference tournament. That's
yeah, that's
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 rough.
not great. That's not a great year.
Yeah, and we have had some requests, some folks who know that you're a big NC State fan, and I have some ties to it. They really want us to deep dive into NC State sports, the pain and misery their teams bring their fans.
No, and I think we should.
Yeah.
I think just a 30-second on that. I would say it's becoming a very big fan base as the city grows and so many students that
Yeah.
went to school there and populate around this area. So number one, there's just an increase in the natural fan base if you attended or grown up around here, you adopt it. Um, but there does feel like there's just not quite the complete commitment from a basketball football standpoint. You need now and nowadays you need money to be able to turn this around. And even though UNC basketball this year is having a little bit of struggle, their talk is a little bit about firing Hubert. Their talk is also about hiring a GM and how do we take these steps forward within the new confines of the rules and NIL and collectives and different things.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to build a brand. We lost the opportunity to carry that through as brands were kind of making, that national transition. 70s, 80s, 70s and 80s, and really North Carolina, but even probably the U.S. NC State was the same brand as UNC and Duke from a basketball or even athletic perspective.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's
And
okay.
as the internet made everything more popular throughout the country, that's when we were not that. And so the last really 35 years, we haven't taken steps forward as a brand and when you don't take those steps forward, you don't have the income and the money interest to be. There's been a lot of successful people come out of NC State that should be
Oh
able
yeah.
to have interest in maybe supporting some of the sports causes, but it has not. I don't think it's come to fruition, and we're not on the same level financially as you see your UNC's, and even though they're on the same playing field.
Yeah, yeah, and I think and again, this is just a short. We can dive into it another time, but part of it too is you've literally got University of North Carolina and Duke University 30 minutes away, and there's always the comparison of the three programs just by proximity. In basketball, clearly Duke and Carolina have taken, I mean, light years steps ahead and then even football, that none of the three have separated themselves. They'll have years when each are a little better, a little worse.
It's going to be interesting with Belichick, obviously, but I would agree. And
Yeah.
I don't know what the rivalry numbers are between the two, but I feel like there's been good steps at Duke. I mean, you think about Duke, they've really, from a football perspective, have had to really dig uphill, from fan interest to, obviously the limitations on getting certain players in there, from academic standpoint. But yeah, it's mediocre with high fan expectations equals disappointment, and I think that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, thank you all for listening today. We hope you had a great week. Wrap this day up, head into the weekend. Have a good one. Happy birthday, Mina.
Out, go pack 3 and 5.